What is up, YouTube? We are back here on the Fumble Pod. I am your host, Dalton Lee. We had a great weekend. Great weekend of college and professional football. Today we're only going to talk college because there is a game tonight for the NFL, Monday Night Football, Jags, Chiefs. If you want my prediction, you have to go to last week's video. But since that's still being played tonight, we're only going to touch on college today. And boy, did we have a very, very interesting weekend of college football. We got a couple games we're going to talk about, so let's just get right on into it. We're going to start off with kind of the run of the mills kind of layup type answers. So, Miami, Florida State. Miami goes into Tallahassee. And I understand the score showed 28-22. The game was not that close. It was never really that close. Florida State tried to crawl back into it, but Miami from the get-go, all sides of the ball, defense, offense, they were dominating this game. And even still late into the game, there was never really a shadow of a doubt that Miami was gonna win this game. I understand Florida State was able to make a play or two to bring it in, make it closer, but there was never a moment's thought where it didn't feel like Miami's game. That D line is just phenomenal. Getting after the quarterback, stopping the run. I mean, there was a lot of nothing out of Florida State early in this game. Yeah, they got the field goal to start, but outside of that, it was all defense from the U. Carson Beck is showing that if you put decent pieces around him, he can be a very good, I wouldn't say playmaker because he's not really having to play make a whole lot. He's more so just playing point guard. He's getting the ball out quick on time to his guys. They have a very good run game. And when you have a defense that's playing as lights out as Miami, not really a whole lot can go wrong. It's more so questions for Florida State versus Miami. Miami's still showing that they are who we think they are at this point in the year, being one of the best teams, not only in the ACC, but in the country. Right now, they're number 3. They probably moved up. The new rankings just came out. I hadn't had a chance to peep over at those yet, but they're a top 3 team for sure. It's more so questions for Florida State at this point because they've lost 2 games straight. You lost to a probably very underrated Virginia team, and now you've lost to a properly rated top 5 Miami team. But this is still supposed to be the same Florida State team that went into Tuscaloosa, beat Bama, who has since then beat Georgia and is right back in the mix for a top 10 team. So now we're having the question, is Florida State that good, or did they just catch Alabama sleeping, caught them off guard at the right time? It's an interesting point to be in when it comes to Florida State because I do like some of the pieces they have. The defense is a little suspect, to say the least. The offense can keep up with a lot of other teams' offenses, but their defense just at times can't make the plays that they need to, especially compared to last year when the only reason they were in a lot of the games last year with how bad they were still in a decent bit of games, was mainly because of their defense. So, I'm sure there's a lot of Florida State fans that are sitting there going, I wish we had last year's defense this year because they would be a top 10 team with how efficient their offense can be. Granted, they have been getting off to some slow starts, but they do eventually kind of start clicking and start getting it together. But Miami from kickoff to the end dominated this game, so they deserved this win outright and are starting to shape up a good path, not only for a ACC championship berth, but a playoff berth too, which they have yet to make a playoff in pretty much my lifetime. For a team that's been historically so dominant in football, it looks like things are starting to finally turn the corner for Miami. So it's exciting to see that, especially for ACC schools, just the ACC in general. Next, Bama hosted Vanderbilt, and I will say Vanderbilt put up a really good fight in this game. Vanderbilt, first half and good chunk of the second half, they were right there competing. Had a lead, tied up, had a lead, tied up. There was one pivotal play that I think is what kind of killed a lot of Vanderbilt's momentum. It was second quarter. They were up a touchdown with the ball, and they're in the red zone. They're I can't remember if it was first and goal or if they were close enough to where they were able to get a first down within like the 2 yard line. But they had the ball. They were moving. I was like, they score here. This is going to get very scary for Alabama. Because at this point, Alabama's offense really hadn't done a whole lot. The defense had shown that they can get carved up a little bit. And Diego Pavia just fumbles. Tries to scramble. He got a couple yards, fumbles. Immediately, Bama goes, scores, tie the game. And it's like from there, it was, all right, who can tire out the other one first? And Bama just out muscled them into a point of, I would probably say, submission. They just started suffocating them, being able to put up a couple more points. And I mean, they won the game 30-14, but the game was really a lot closer than that. Vanderbilt was truly a player two away from tying it and going back and forth with them. So if you're a Vanderbilt, I wouldn't hang your head too low. I mean, yes, you beat this team last year after they beat Georgia last year, so you were kind of hoping for the same thing, just this time in Tuscaloosa. But it showed that Alabama, I don't want to say matured, but kind of got over that hump of being a victim to a trap game. Being like, yeah, we're coming off of a big win, but we can still keep moving forward. And that's big for DeBoer, whose seat was starting to get hot, and now, not saying he's totally off the hook yet, but it's helped that you got back-to-back ranked wins, one on the road, one at home. It's good. It's good to see that they're able to maybe also be turning that corner, being able to say, hey, we can build something here. We can be consistent enough to not only win the big game, but then win the next game. That even though it's still somewhat a big game, it's a team that we should beat. And they showed that they're starting to grow again after the post Nick Saban era. So it's good for them. A game that we didn't touch a whole lot on. Michigan, Wisconsin, that was a good game for a good chunk of it, but Michigan was able to kind of play like Michigan of old. Just ground and pound, wear down Wisconsin, and just rely heavily on the run game between Justice Haynes. Underwood didn't do a whole lot in the rushing attack, but the two backs between Marshall and Haynes had a good day. And it actually opened up the passing game quite a bit for Michigan. I mean, probably one of Bryce Underwood's better days. 1928, 270 yards, had a nice touchdown. It's just all around really good football coming out of them. The defense showed out just like they always do, but it was a good showing from Michigan that they're starting to get back on track to who they are as a program. Even though it's still early, they're starting to trend back in the right direction in terms of wins. Now we're going to get into the two big one's not as big of an upset just because we had a lot of questions. The other one is. So we're going to start with the not as surprising one and then jump into the big one. So number 9 Texas went into the swamp to play Florida. And going into it, thought Texas was the better team. The defense had showed that they were the better team through and through. It was more so the questions of the offense. What kind of Arch Manning were we getting in this game? What was going to happen on that side of the ball against a Florida team that the defense has showed to have been really, really good and has kept them in a lot of these games, including the losses. It was more so, how much do we trust on the offense? And from the jump, that defense really did flex the Florida defense really flexed that they are that good and can compete. Arch Manning had a rough day. But if you look at just the numbers, you're like, oh, Arch played really poorly. But if you watch the game, that offensive line couldn't do a whole lot, whether it came to running or pass protection. There were a lot of times Arch was running for his life, in the pocket, out of the pocket, just trying to keep a play alive. And in the run game, couldn't get nothing going with running back. Their most successful runner was Arch Manning, which isn't a good recipe for success. If your best runner is Arch Manning and it's not always by design, that's not good by any means. That just shows that your offensive line has an issue. And this hasn't been the first time that it's shown that the offensive line has had issues. This is just one of the bigger stages to be like, oh, they really can't block anybody. Ohio State, week one, kind of give a pass. We're like, it's week one, safe play calling. All right. We're getting to week two, or this is week 6 now, and we're like, they still can't run block against teams that are supposedly even matched. It's looking rough. And it's also looking like, to an extent, the wide receivers aren't very helpful to Arch. I'm not sitting here trying to give all these excuses for Arch. There are still times where Arch hasn't played great, is even in this game. But it's the more you watch Texas, you go, does Arch really have that much help as compared to some of the other Texas teams that we've seen? We've seen them have really good to great offensive lines. We've seen them have really good playmakers, both in the backfield and on the outside as weapons. And looking at this team, it is not built like a team that we thought was going to be as explosive. Going into the season, we were like, they got some guys that can make some plays, but they really hadn't showed that ability to do that. And this game definitely showed it, just because Florida, say what you want about the team, has a very good defense. They have been hanging their hat on that quite a bit. But that wasn't the biggest shock to me in this game. The biggest shock was actually how efficient Florida moved the ball on offense. It's almost weird to say, knowing what we've seen the last couple weeks, that DJ Lagway looked like a promising quarterback. He looked like what we had saw on the back end of last year in this game, especially after the start of this year. I mean, he had 5 interceptions against LSU. We were like, this kid can't play. But the reason why he looked so good, the offense actually flowed. They actually were able to run the ball. They established a run game to where they could go to it early and often. That does open up the passing game. And DJ Lagway was able to execute and make the right plays because they were actually somewhat there and somewhat open. I mean, the kid only had 7 incompletions on the day. Had a pick, but had 2 touchdowns with it. But when you have a running back go for 100 yards and a touchdown on the day, I mean, as a team, they ran over north of 150, maybe close to 160. It's an efficient day out of your run game. And that leads to your pass game getting close to 300 yards. It's a very efficient day, especially with the way your defense plays. You keep playing like that, you will be a good team. I'm not saying Florida's all of a sudden going to make this comeback and be a playoff team, but they can save the season for sure and be like, look, we can do this. You just have to figure out how to do it early and often and be able to build upon it versus having to claw out of a 1-3 hole going into conference play and, maybe lose a game to a team that is overall better versus starting out hot, building confidence, and then when you get into those big games, like they have to play Georgia in a couple weeks. If you're playing Georgia and you only have 1 loss on the year and you've been playing really good football, you go into that game saying, we can probably compete with these guys. And you might be able to, versus going in where, like, you're clawing your way out. Granted, at that point, you're like, we don't have a whole lot to lose. Let's just go and play. But it's almost frustrating now to see Florida be like, you played poorly against USF and lose. Your offense plays poorly against LSU, even though your defense is keeping you in it for a majority of that game. And now to watch you play against a Texas defense that, frankly, for majority of the season, we're like, this is a top 5 defense, arguably maybe the best. And you're kind of able to do whatever you want on offense. It's like, where has this been since day one? It's just going to this game, you got to be frustrated as a Texas fan because you think you have the next guy at quarterback, and it's very hard to evaluate at times because I do still think Arch is talented. I do think early in the season, it was a lot of trying to get up to speed with the game because he had limited reps early on in his college career, and now he's playing catch up. And now it's like, to an extent, he's starting to catch up, but now you're realizing, okay, he doesn't really have an offensive line that can help in the run game or block in the passing game. And he doesn't have a lot of weapons that could. He doesn't even have a guy that you can consistently go to and say, hey, it's 3rd and 5. We need a first down. We're getting the ball to X or Y or Z. He doesn't have a guy to do that. So then that's when you get to, he's trying to play hero ball. That's where you get your turnovers, your mistakes. Or quite possibly when he's trying to run, he's like, I need 1 more yard. He's putting his shoulder down. That's where you can get injured. So right now, I think Texas on the offensive side of the ball has to go to drawing board. They have to figure out this offensive line. It's very bad coming from somebody who devoted a decent bit of his life to playing offensive line and wanting to establish the line of scrimmage. It's very frustrating to watch a bad offensive line because that's where it all starts and finishes. If your offensive line can't get a push, whether it's running plays or even asserting a dominance in the pass game, your offense is dead. You cannot do anything. And when you have a quarterback that you think is talented and shows flashes of being talented, it's just demoralizing because you're like, he can't do anything. Granted, still had the 2 picks, but you almost got to watch it and go, is it because they're bad reads, or is it that he's trying to do something on offense and that's where the mistakes come? Mistakes are going to happen, especially when you're trying to make a play. But you can't build offense on, oh, your quarterback's going to make a play, when you don't have playmakers for him to make plays for, or offensive line that gives him time to be able to make a play. You're in that panic mode. And that's where things get ugly and sporadic. So all in all, I still think Texas could possibly recover from this, but they got to do some soul searching, especially, like I keep hammering, the offensive line. If you have a good offensive line, you don't necessarily have to have great weapons, because at least then you can establish a run game that will open up that passing game. But if you can't do anything on an offensive line, you can kiss offense goodbye. Plain and simple, to be outright. And Florida showed that their offensive line can get the job done versus a really good to great Texas defense. Plain and simple. Now we get into the game that I didn't talk about at all last week because I was like, there's no point. Number 7, Penn State, coming off of a tough loss, close loss to Oregon at home. They go on the road to Southern California to play UCLA, who hadn't won a game, hadn't led in a game all year, 0-4, and lose. And yes, the score shows, 42-37. You're like, okay, it was a close game. They were down 27-7 at one point. At halftime, I'm pretty sure that was the score. And it's just, you look at it and you're like, what is Penn State doing? They didn't run the ball particularly well. They were asking Drew Allard to play Superman. The defense, I think that's what really was demoralizing in that game. Because you can see the offense trying to get back in, and you're like, okay, offense is starting to click. They're scoring. It's a 2-score game now. And then it's just like UCLA was able to just go, oh, they're getting back in it? Okay, touchdown here. And you're like, where's the energy on defense? Then the offense go back down, score a touchdown. You're like, they're right back in it. What do UCLA do? Put together another drive and score. It's like, what are we? What? It was so frustrating. Just because we look at this Penn State team and they're like, it should be a very good team. Up top, I'm gonna get like, you can see like the confusion coming at me, and it's making the words just not word. Because you look at the roster and you go, this is a good team. The defense should be top 10 in the country. The offense should be able to run the ball. Drew Aller, I do think, is a solid quarterback. He doesn't have great receivers, but you would think that they shouldn't because of how well they normally run the ball, which will open up the passing game. And Drew Aller, when you give him a clean pocket, can make throws. He can make good throws. But if you're having to play catch up, especially like they were in this game, you have no run game. You're having to rely on your quarterback to make plays. And yet, with how bad the defense played for majority of this game, Penn State had a chance to win it. They had 4th and 2 in the red zone. And it was honestly a terrible play call. 4th and 2, you're calling quarterback power option. So they bring a receiver in motion, and you got running back to the right of the quarterback. Shotgun snap. Bring a receiver in motion, and you're reading the defensive end. If the defensive end comes upfield and crashes on the quarterback, you hand it off. He goes to the outside. If he sits there and hesitates or goes outside, you keep it. I don't think it was the right read. Granted, they blitzed, so really the play was dead from the get-go because regardless if Aller hands it off or keeps it, play's dead because you have defenders going to the outside already. You got blitzing linebackers coming at the quarterback. It's just wasn't a good play call at all. They tried it once earlier in the game and lost 7 yards on a ball that was handed off that really shouldn't have. And I think that's why he kept it. Because you can look back at it and go, well, if he keeps it, he can sneak a couple yards, get in there. And it just didn't. It's just an ugly play call to end your game. Like, 4th and 2, run game, you hadn't really done a whole lot of it. At that point, you go, let's just try and air it out. Or at least get to a situation where it's a pass play, quarterback can roll out, maybe make a play to get 2 yards. Keep the chains alive. But at that point, you end the game, and UCLA gets out of there with a win. And you know, good on UCLA. You spent all that money to get 5-star quarterback, Nico. And he actually had a really good game. He played really good. If you're Penn State, you're just making it tough to try and get to not only a Big Ten championship, but a playoff berth. And I think the roster is good enough. It's just right now they need a reality check. And I think this UCLA loss will be perfect for them to kind of go, all right, what are we good at? And lean on it. Normally you would say defense. They didn't play good. Got to figure that out. Normally they should be good at running the ball. They haven't been able to do it. Got to figure that out. Because obviously you don't have the weapons to air the ball out if you can't run the ball. So you got to go back to the drawing board and re-simplify what you want to do. And you got to do it quick because your schedule is only going to get tougher. I mean, you still got to play either Michigan or Ohio State. They only have to play one of them, but they got to still play them. And both of them, obviously, Ohio State, number 1 team in the country, and Michigan, who is only trending to be better, it's gonna be a tough game. It's just I don't know what to expect out of Penn State anymore. Normally expect them to win the big games. And another game that was upset that wasn't necessarily as big. Iowa State did lose Cincinnati. I caught glimpses of this game. Cincinnati just came out and balled out. They've been sneaky under the radar. They were 3-1 going in this game, 4-1 now. They were Iowa State was asking Rocco Beck play hero ball, and for the most part was doing it. The issue really was kind of the defense. Defense couldn't come up with a play or a stop to really let them truly get back in it. And Cincinnati ran the absolute hell out of the ball. Quarterback still had a decent day. Didn't have to throw a whole lot, mainly because you ran for 264 yards. It's a great day. Great day on your offensive line. So, I mean, they just get in there and get the job done. And the last game I'm going to touch on, I had to stay up to watch this. As you can tell, it's affecting me, my sleep. But Duke went into Cal, 10:30 kickoff. And I got very worried early on because I'd seen how Duke had played over the last 2 weeks, and they looked night and day compared to the first 4. I was like, this defense is going to come out, going to get after the quarterback, make a mistake. The offense is going to just keep doing what they've been doing, and everything's going to be fine. Quickly, it was 14-0 Cal, and I'm like, well, here's the defense we saw the first couple of weeks. Just letting teams get off to a good start early. Duke scores, I'm like, hey, getting right back in it. Yep, 21-7. It's like, okay, what are we doing? Then you kind of just see a switch, and it's like Chandler Rivers gets an interception. I'm like, okay, makes a big play, immediately score. Gets a stop, scores again, tied ball game. I'm like, okay. Gets another stop. Actually, I lied. Chandler Rivers was the second pick. It was true freshman safety. Can't think of his name. Just post route. I got scared, saw the ball. I'm like, oh no. Got the pick. Chandler Rivers was the second one. Make it 21 all. And then from there, it was all Duke. That D-line woke up. They stopped the run for the most part. They still broke off a couple big runs, but once they had to go to the pass game, it was just nightmarish for that quarterback. He was trying to run, make plays, and just was either getting sacked, had nobody open, and had to scramble. It was just nightmare for them. And at this point, Duke offense, what they have been doing, being able to air out the ball. The run game has actually been developing between Nate Shepard, Anderson Castle. Jaquez Moore had a couple good plays, so they showed that, yeah, we can run the ball, which is great for a team that has already shown that they can throw the ball very efficient. Even though, you would say this was one of Darian Mintz's worst day, threw for 264, 2 touchdowns, no picks, which is weird to say that that's one of his worst days, but it's highly efficient. Gets you the dub. You win 45-28. No, 45-21. I keep saying 28 like they scored again. They didn't. It was 38 unanswered points. 38. Very, very efficient into that first half, and just to finish it off in the second half. Granted, offense got a little cold in the third quarter. You're like, ugh, Cal is like one play away from being right back in it. And then Duke scores a touchdown. I'm like, okay, you can breathe. Defense still doing what they do. Duke gets another score, and we're like, okay, this game's over for good. So Duke is finally. Let me get a swig of this water. My throat's killing me. This Duke team is finally starting to look like the team that we saw or that we thought they were going to be before the season started. What we've been seeing when they played State, when they played Syracuse, they're starting to be more consistent in terms of how the defense plays. I just wish they would start games better. We know that we've seen that they can finish games well, but can they start better? Like the best start they've really had all year was against Illinois. Granted, the offense didn't start that well. The defense did. But now we can see that they can flip that switch. But at some point, you're going to play a team where flipping that switch isn't going to be enough. Illinois, for example, was one of those. Tulane did just enough on the ground to keep them out of it. And now you're looking at Duke's schedule and you're like, a schedule we thought was easy is starting to look a little tougher, but can still be easy. You know, Clemson hadn't looked great, but they just had a big win. I say big. They had a blowout win against UNC 38-10. I know we talked about it a little bit last week, but I mean, Clemson handled business. UNC just looked lost. So you can't count Clemson out in Clemson. You got to play Georgia Tech this week. It's a noon kickoff on ESPN in Durham. You lost a close one last year. I think this year the defense is a lot similar to last year, but the offense is much more improved out of Duke. So you're kind of hoping that you can turn that corner, beat ranked Georgia Tech, be able to propel you into potential ACC berth. And on the back end of those two upcoming ACC games, you still got to play Virginia, who is now ranked and has a really efficient offense. So this is me kind of calling a shot. If Duke can go 3-0 in those games, they're going to the ACC championship, where I think they'll probably have to play Miami, which I don't know how much I like that matchup for Duke. Not counting them out per se, but that Miami team is really, really good. But can't look that far ahead. Just got to stick week to week. Duke's coming off of a win. They're getting ready to play Georgia Tech now. That's all they can focus on. That's all they need to focus on right now. And that's all I got for you today. If you like what you heard, like what you saw, like, subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you like, what you didn't like. Something maybe you wish I touched on more. If you're new here, subscribe. Hit the notification button so you know when we post, if you want to keep up with everything that's going on. But until next time, deuces.